Welcome to the new world of animal allies, the doctors, volunteers, pet owners and other surprising visitors who are out there making a difference. In South Africa, a nervous Doc Rogers takes on a very precious patient, while in Australia, animal helpers assist a group of whales as they struggle to return to the sea. In this week's How To, Dr. Justine has some practical advice on cat hygiene. And in the UK, Animal World sympathises with those who have recently lost a pet.
Stand by, Mark.
Dr. Peter Rogers spends his days looking after animals, and these are no ordinary animals. He's the resident vet at the Kapama Game Reserve. The Kapama Game Reserve is 14,000 hectares of wild and beautiful South African bushland. It's home to a vast array of magnificent creatures, such as lions, cheetahs, elephants, rhinos, giraffes, and many more exotic and often dangerous animals. This male lion was rescued from a zoo in Mozambique. It's believed to be a Barbary lion, one of the rarest lions in the world. So the animals that Peter has to treat in his daily surgery are somewhat different to the average vet. So far on Animal Allies, we've seen him treat lions who are lacking in vitamin A.
Okay. All right, she's done. Not too happy, but it's good for her.
Give a post-operation checkup to a cheetah that he's successfully treated for cancer.
Okay, see, this is the thing we were worried about. You see, there's no real lump if you look inside here.
No shade, nothing.
Really?
He also had to implant a contraceptive into a leopard that was about to come onto heat, held at the Moholo Holo Animal Rehabilitation Centre. Today's task is to get to grips with a rare king cheetah called Nkosi, which loosely translated means king or chief. King cheetahs are extremely rare. There are very few of them left in the wild. Nkosi received a nasty leg injury after a fight with some neighbouring cheetahs. He was in a critical condition when the doc found him, but with some urgent attention, he was patched up as good as new. He's being held in a pen with his friend to reduce the stress. Unfortunately, his wound hasn't healed and appears to have become infected. Doc Rogers' assistant, Chris Marie, needs to separate the two friends once again. Doc Rogers estimates the weight of the cheetah.
50 kilograms.
King cheetahs are extremely rare and valuable, and it's always a nerve-wracking experience operating on them. After a quick calculation, Doc Rogers knows the correct dose of anaesthetic to see his patient through the procedure.
I shot in the boat.
Then it's out with the dart gun.
Actually, he's already right here. Get this pressure down a little bit.
With a good eye and a steady hand, the dart is dispatched successfully. Now it's a matter of waiting for the drugs to do their work and the cheetah to drift off into a peaceful sleep. As the drugs take hold, Nkosi becomes sedate.
Cheetah's running that way, guys.
One cheetah that certainly isn't sedate is Nyana Spear. The cheetah is a species that's suffering from dwindling numbers, and a charity event's been organised to draw attention to their plight. This fine-looking 17-month-old is the first competitor to take part in the Cheetah Challenge. The Cape Town crowd waits eagerly. The Cheetah Challenge is a kind of timed Olympic sprint for cats, pitting cheetahs around the world against each other to see who's the fastest. And she's off, hot in pursuit of a radio-controlled lure. Her time would have the world's top sprinters green with envy. At 6.9 seconds, she's over 2 seconds ahead of the fastest man in the world. And you get the impression she could go a lot faster if she wanted to. Perhaps if there was a real meal at the end of the sprint, as there would be in the wild, the prize would drive her on even more. Nyana can sleep easy, knowing that she's done her bit to help highlight the plight of her species. Back at Kapama, and the drugs have done their job. Uncozy is now fast asleep, and it's time to try to shift him into the operating theatre.
You see her growling a little bit, Cheetah.
In Animal Doctors Part 2, we'll return to the Kapama Game Reserve to see how Doc Rogers gets on with this beautiful and extremely precious creature.
On a freezing cold night, the alarm is raised, and a group of animal helpers begin a dark midnight trek. 90 whales have beached themselves on a remote Western Australian beach. It doesn't take long before word gets out, and people begin to make their way through fields and across sand dunes to reach the stranded whales. This is an all too familiar sight in Augusta, Australia, at the point where the Southern Ocean meets the Indian Ocean. Almost every year, for some unknown reason, whales and dolphins beach themselves on this coast. But rarely do so many come at once. The animal helpers have their work cut out for them. As the sun comes up, the full extent of the tragedy is visible. There are whales littering the beach. But by now, more than 1,000 people have arrived to try and save the few whales that still hang on to life.
I'm determined it's going to survive. Yeah, we're going to pull her through because, you know, she's a living thing and everything deserves to be given a chance.
Quickly, the conservation and land management officers in charge of the rescue mobilise trucks and diggers. The plan is to try and refloat the whales and get them back into the water. But at this point the sea is too rough, and the rescuers have decided to move them to another bay and release them there. It's a mammoth task. The whales have to be lifted carefully onto the back of the trucks, then driven several miles down the beach to a river. By now, around 2,000 people have arrived. Everyone is trying to do their bit to help save the whales.
Oh, just to give a hand, that's all.
I think it's just that they're related more to people, I think, than we are.
The wildlife officers decide to see if the whales are ready to be released back into the open ocean. But it seems as though the animals are still disoriented. The sun's setting, and the volunteers have a very cold night ahead of them. They must keep the whales afloat to stop them from drowning. It's a very stressful and emotional time for these animal helpers. Dawn brings little comfort. It's been a freezing night, but no more whales have died and they seem to be rested. It could be time to release them back into the sea.
What we'll do is the same as yesterday, deploy board riders to cut off the reef.
A flotilla of canoes makes a channel for the whales. It's a tense time. Sometimes whales that are released can re-beach themselves again. Either they became disoriented or make a decision to return. The rescuers certainly don't want this to happen, especially after they've been standing in freezing water all night. The whales are making good progress when suddenly a torrential rainstorm appears. The wildlife officers in charge of the release have to leave the whales and save the people on the boards and canoes. Suddenly the whales stop swimming and turn towards the beach, swimming back at full speed. Within minutes they're beached again. The rescuers' worst fears are realised. But despite the fact the volunteers are on the edge of exhaustion, the battle to save them is on again.
Head first off the beach, right use the surge one at a time to get them up there. So slide this one out.
It's now been 2 days and 2 nights since the animals became stranded. They have to get them back out into deep water very soon.
The same strategy will apply in terms of getting the animals out of this holding area as applied this morning. Over that side, between...
In a matter of hours, the volunteers have got their second wind and are ready for another release attempt. The board riders are in the water and ready. One theory of why the whales beach themselves is that they're trying to help a sick friend. It's thought that the re-beach happened because a weak animal got confused and beached itself, and the others stayed with it. So, a weakened whale is harnessed to the front of a rescue boat and taken out to deep water as a lure. A helicopter is deployed in the hope that the noise might keep the whales away from the land. The whales are on their journey back to freedom again. The board riders have now done all they can and are heading back to shore, and the whales keep heading out to sea. Jubilantly, the wildlife officers follow them. Thanks to over 2,000 volunteers, the whales are back where they belong.
After the break, Animal Allies looks at ways to deal with pet bereavement. And will Doc Rogers' operation on the precious Cheetah succeed?
Pregnant women are often concerned that having a cat as a pet may make them more vulnerable to certain diseases. Animal Allies Guide to Keeping a Cat's Living Environment Germ and Disease-Free. Lynn Cochrane is about to give birth and is visiting Dr. Justine to find out what measures should be taken once the baby's born.
You got Suki with you?
Yep.
Yeah? You look like you're about to...
Oh, well, I am, so that's why I thought I'd come and see you, say hello, and just to find out how things are going with Suki and what I should be doing now.
Okay,
baby's almost due.
And how did you go through the pregnancy?
Oh, fine. I just applied all the things you told me. I made sure that my partner changed the litter tray.
Excellent.
And made sure all my vegetables were washed and meat was cooked, and everything seems to be fine.
It looks like it all went very well.
Although there's a small risk of catching an infection, it's important to ensure that the cat's litter tray is changed regularly, preferably not by the mother-to-be. Once the baby's born, a number of other steps should be taken.
What you need to do is just put a net over the cot to protect the baby. Okay. Follow your general rules of hygiene. Yeah. Just the way you've been going. If your partner's used to cleaning the litter tray now,
you
can let him keep doing it, which is great.
One less chore for me.
When the baby starts to walk and you've got a toddler, then you must make sure that you are regularly cleaning the litter tray.
If a child consumes cat faeces, they're at high risk of catching worms, so it's a good idea to also clean away stools from the garden.
You want to also be careful though not to change any of
But while hygiene is important, so are the cat's feelings.
Just any changes now could be quite detrimental, so you certainly don't want to move things around and freak them out. You want things to remain quite calm and let them accept the new member of family. Well, I hope it all goes well.
Well.
And just give me a ring if you have any other questions.
So for this week's Animal Allies How-To, if pregnant, wear gloves when cleaning out the litter tray or get another family member to do it. Keep the litter tray and garden area clean. Place a net over the baby's cot. Pay attention to the cat when the baby is born. A jealous cat can become aggressive. The relationship between a pet owner and their pet is a very precious one. Over the years, they become a fully fledged member of the family. Unfortunately, this means that when we lose a much-loved pet, it feels like we've lost a very special friend. Grieving for the loss of a pet can be a sad and difficult experience. A life once filled with the love and friendship of a pet may suddenly seem very empty. So to help people through what can be a very difficult time, the Pet Bereavement Service was created. Joanne Dono is the project's coordinator.
The Pet Bereavement Support Service came about
as a result of people writing into the charity requesting one of their booklets on pet loss. And what was recognised was a need for people to talk about their loss and to speak to other people. It's a telephone helpline. It's very much what we call a befriending service, not a counselling service. It's run by volunteers who take calls in their own home and are there to provide emotional support to people at a time that for a lot of pet owners is very, very difficult.
Oh, hello. Is this the pet bereavement line? I was given your number by the Blue Cross. I just need somebody to talk to. Is that all right? Basically, all our befrienders offer emotional support to people, and they do that by listening. It's one of the most important things that we do. Befrienders don't advise people. They basically offer a listening ear at a time when often family and friends aren't available or don't have the patience to actually listen to them while they're grieving for their pet.
Deb Sutton is a telephone befriender.
All I'm doing on the telephone is I'm listening to them, and I'm giving them the opportunity to say exactly what they feel. When a pet dies, a companion animal, the grief is indescribable for some people because they've had this animal with them for X number of years, and they've had, I mean, love, absolutely unconditional love. They feel so often that they can't talk to other people.
Yeah. Most people seem to think that, you know, he was only a dog and he had a good life and that's it, and now get over it and move on and have another animal, but it isn't, no, not at all.
Our volunteer telephone befrienders are people that fundamentally love animals, and they have a very deep compassion for animals and for people. They've all lost a pet of their own. They all understand what that feels like. They've been through the process of grief. They've felt the anger, they felt the pain, they felt the guilt. They've come through that.
But friends and family, of course, they're trying to cheer you up. They love you, they care about you, they want to make you better. If this service wasn't around, there would be a tremendous amount of unresolved grief. And unresolved grief is the sort of grief that you carry with you for years and years. You just don't ever let go.
It must be remembered that when one loses an animal, it's the loss of an attachment. Whether it's a hamster, the size of a hamster, a rabbit, or a horse, it's the attachment that's lost. And I think there's a general trend where people are recognising that when one loses that attachment, then there can be a lot of pain involved.
Anytime you'd like to ring, pick up the phone. If I'm not here, there's an answer phone. Leave me your telephone number, and I'll always call you back.
With the service now covering the whole of the UK, even more people can benefit from the help that the befrienders offer, enabling them to deal with the grief of losing a faithful friend.
Back in surgery at the Kapama Game Reserve, the temperature is rising.
That's perfect. Open that door, please, Chris, and get some air in here.
Doc Rogers is starting to sweat.
See the pale colour of the tongue is typical of this anaesthetic. It's better not to actually even look at it. It just makes you worried.
This patient is extremely precious, and despite all the doc's experience and all the safety procedures in the world, every time you administer an anaesthetic, you take a risk. And Cozy's wound has become seriously infected.
It only just went in.
The first thing Doc Rogers needs to do is inject some antibiotics into Cozy.
See what's happened to Chris Marie is that the, you know, they obviously got hold of him. And then they just held him. But from the outside, it looks like this superficial damage just because he got a little puncture. You know, he was obviously twisting his foot so the flesh inside gets hammered as well. And you know, from the outside, it looks all nice and hunky-dory, but you don't know what's going on the inside. So what's actually happened here is it's actually, you know, with all the bleeding inside, blood is a perfect culture medium for bacteria. in that big blood clot that was caused. Just keep on your breathing, huh?
Okay.
Okay, so we're just flushing him with peroxide, hydrogen peroxide and iodine, just to get all the muck out. The peroxide dissolves all the dead tissue. It's starting to look a bit better already. Iodine is one of the oldest antiseptics around, but probably still the best. See, it goes right up to here. I'll feel a lot better after this. See, what only worries me now is it's draining nicely, but you know, with all this pus and stuff coming out, it attracts flies.
The area is sprayed to keep flies away. With the wound now thoroughly cleaned, Nkosi is taken back to his pen. When he wakes up, he'll be with his friend again. Next day, and the patient seems to be bouncing back nicely, and Doc Rogers explains the aftercare procedure to Maria.
Holiday. So 2.5 tablets again tonight, and then for the next 4 days. 2.5 in the morning, 2.5 at night.
Right.
Okay.
You almost didn't make it, eh?
Yeah, but he seems to be okay.
Thanks to Doc Rogers, Nkosi's future looks assured, but in a place like the Kapama Game Reserve, you never know what's around the corner.
Right, he's quite strong.
What is certain is that Doc Rogers will be on hand to patch up any casualties. In the next programme, the new world of animal allies returns to the vets and volunteers at the Kenyana Wildlife Centre. And in the Scottish Highlands nestles a farm with an unusual menagerie.